The Extra Life page has raised. So currently we are at $195 raised. So that divided by 25 is 8 challenges. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I made 5 more, so I'll shuffle these and add 3. There is also a challenge secreted within the randomizer connected to a certain subject. So I'm rounding this up to 200. So there are technically 9 challenges. That challenge is going to require an aggressive Aaron type to clap a few times. Hey, we got a volunteer. So I just gotta remember, this is the challenge deck. All right, I'm gonna deal out the 10, because I want to get us rolling here as soon as possible. Let's get the row out. These are some Ultra Pro Transformers branded sleeves. They are not great, but they gave them to all of us at the Energon Invitational in 2019. I have a million of them. So these are the challenges. We have 8 challenges, so I'm just going to lay these out like this. I'm going to say the first one and the last one will go without challenge cards, unless the secreted challenge pops up, then I will shunt things accordingly. The secreted challenge I have shuffled into the back half of things, so we don't get it out of the way right away. So when it happens, I will call upon you. Anyway, quick rundown. This is the Manic Marathon. I have 10 subjects to do old-timey 2000 style in front of a camera toy reviews of. I'm going to be trying to do them within 50 minutes because a 1-hour slot needs time for the next panelist to set up. We got to be fair. There are challenges attached to 8 of these that were raised by people donating to my Extra Life page, which is going towards Sick Kids Ontario. Feel free to keep donating to the Extra Life page. This is just an attempt to get it, going. A lot of thanks, by the way, to my Extra Life teammate Aaron, who couldn't be here, but he promised to match donations to his page to mine so that we'd get pain going for me, I believe, was his modus operandi. So let's get going here. I'm going to get my timer up because we are at 10 o'clock. So the first subject is going to be HasLab Transformers. HasLab Transformers Holy and Fire. Transformers HasLab exclusive Holy and Fire. So I'm going to get these out. This is my period before the timer starts, getting all that stuff ready, and the timer will go starting now. Holy and Fire are a whole lot like a couple of Micromasters you might have seen during the Siege era. In fact, the same 2-pack. It might have just been a convenient thing that these two happened to be in Victory and they had stretch goals to do for Star Saber. The paint job on these, however, is pumped up a bit. That was always the Siege Micromaster thing, is they had lots and lots of paint. The fire truck, Autobot Fire, as he's called now because he's got the prefix, transforms very simply, and you might notice his leg came off immediately. This is the theme of the HasLab Micromasters. I see someone nodding in the audience already. The ball socket hips that these guys got, they were just so hyped to be HasLab exclusives that they just can't keep it together. Their legs keep flying off. I forgot to bring my spudger, so I'm going to give this one college try, and then we will just take it as a penalty. Yeah, I cannot get his head to turn. No, I can get his head to turn around. His head is turned around. That's part of the transformation on this fire truck. Most people don't know about it because turning his head is terrible. We got someone nodding in the audience once again. We have also got Holy here. I'm calling him Holy because I believe his name is meant to be a play off of Porisu, but they changed the po to a ho by taking the little circle off. That's some Japanese alphabetic education for y'all. So a lot of people like to say Holly because that sounds like a real name. His leg fell off. We did pretty well, actually, considering my experience with this little guy. But the paint work on these two little robot modes is great. Articulation on them is ball socket shoulders. Fire has got too much stuff on his shoulders to make much use of that. His hips can move. His hips don't fall off all the time when I move them. That's pretty cool, right? Now let's do Holy. Holy's hips, you try to move them forward, they come off immediately. When you try to move them forward, they actually hit a friction bump There's no way around them coming off that I could determine. He's got better range on his shoulders, so I like to have these two just standing on my desk, arms raised high, saying, "We're expensive!" And that's kind of the gist of this. If you manage to get these on their own, which is not impossible, because some Star Saber folks did have them up for sale and are not yet aware that the other two are coming out with Deathsaurus, you can snag some expensive exclusive Micromasters whose legs like to fall off. Next review subject is... oh, this is a new one. This is hot in the news. Armada Optimus Prime. I know you all saw that $1,000 auction that was up. Armada Optimus Prime. Supercon version. This is the classic Bendy Prime. This is here because of the, the 20th anniversary-ish. And the challenge for this one and Overrun will be... fully explain the basic brushing of teeth while doing the review. So, Armada Supercon Prime, known as Bendy Prime, in his vehicle mode, he's ready to go. Much like your mouth should be ready to go at the beginning of your day or the end of your day for some dental hygiene. Now, this thing can roll. 6 wheels might remind you of the sometimes like 3 to 6 undulating circular things on an electric toothbrush, which is a great way to get some dental hygiene going on if you need a bit of assistance with the vibration to get that stuff out of your gums. Overrun here is a sort of Colgate Silver, a type of toothpaste, actually, that is really good for getting some of the dirt out of your mouth. And he doesn't really do much with Supercon Prime. You'll note that there is a Minicon gimmick. It's completely locked in this mode. We'll see it later on. So let's get the transformation going, flip the feet out, and also make sure you get some moisture on your toothbrush before you get that toothpaste on there. It really helps the process work out. Now, while I'm flipping the arms out here, I'm going to switch this back and forth a little bit for the 2 cameras. An important thing to note is that when you get your toothpaste on your toothbrush, you don't need more than a pea-size amount of toothpaste. Now, I know all the commercials are going to do. They're going to tell you, oh, dang, get that big globule of goo on there so you get a nice filmic shot of how much stuff is going in your mouth. You don't need that much. That's big toothpaste trying to sell you a whole lot of extra toothpaste. You only need like 1 or 2 tubes per year tops. So just, be nice to your wallet. Don't overspend on toothpaste. I'm not sure if this little guy has caught a huge aftermarket value, to be honest. But if he has, spend wisely there as well. Armada Supercon Optimus was a big deal when he came out because he had articulation. That was a whole conversation in the 2003 fandom. There are now people in the fandom born after that commence turning to dust, much like your teeth will if you don't maintain good dental hygiene. Overrun here is a little jet Minicon who has a pretty neat gun mode because he goes upside down and flips some stuff up, and now guess what? He's a pistol. He's also possibly a leader 1 who's been reformatted to the side of good. They never touched on that in any of the fiction as far as I can recall, except maybe the comic briefly before it was canceled. But that's what happens when you don't brush your teeth. You stop appearing in fiction. These forearm guns can come off. They don't really serve any purpose, unlike the large version. And let's get that little guy off of there so we can show you that gimmick. We stick this little dude on the back. That unlocks the Minicon port. And then much like an electric toothbrush, we can begin to undulate. You see what those fists are doing? He's doing some Gatling plaque action, getting all that gum disease out of your mouth, much like a sonic toothbrush might. We can do this for a little while. I think my timer screen turned off. Okay, we're doing all right. I think this is supposed to be Gatling action from his forearm guns, and I suspect that this might be something that breaks on this now that this is a 20-year-old toy. But someone's nodding. I'm going to stop. The articulation on this dude, much like that of, they have some toothbrushes actually that have like really cool sort of bendy necks to help get into those back molars where it's kind of hard to, access. You've got shoulders that go forward and backward and up and out on these hinges. That was huge in 2002 or 3. I forgot what year this one came out. There's an elbow joint here that sort of undoes transformation a little bit. If you go past up to 90 degrees, there's a ball socket elbow inside here that lets you bicep swivel. There is a waist joint. There is a head joint, which was big in 2003. The hips have got a ball socket. I took a look because I forgot connection. That only goes this far forward because of the sculpting on the hips. Actually, if I could grab a camera person quickly, I think we should raise this shot up slightly. Sorry about that. There are knee joints that are ratcheted and clickety, just up about like 15 degrees. Thank you. Yeah, up to about the top of his head. Probably good. Yeah, and the ankles have got like a bit of tilt. They go forward and backwards beyond the needs of the transformation. So this dude is cool even now, because this is kind of like, if you just want Armada Optimus Prime and you haven't looked at the news at all in the last 2 months, this is like your most articulated option. Ignore the news. I should also turn Overrun into his robot mode, because he is a Minicon and he's got that power going on. So we'll flip all this stuff around and backwards. This is sort of the gist of the robot mode. He does not do much. He can wave his arms around. His legs are very stuck. There we go. His arms can kind of wiggle forward. He has a very large breast, and his legs can split outwards, very far outwards, and that's kind of the gist of what he does. He does the splits, and he offers small objects to those around him. That's Armada Optimus Prime and Overrun, available now in the year 2003. Next up, we have Studio Series 86 RC, and the challenge is knocking this camera sideways. By the way, the theme of these subjects is a mixture of I don't have check luggage and woman robot. Because a lot of them fit into my carry-on luggage. They got small alt modes. The challenge is, do this review in the style of a Transformers Generation 2 rap song. I was hoping this would be on the core class, because I don't actually know how to keep this going, so let's give it a shot. It's the year 86, we got us RC. This is Studio Series, it ain't Legacy. Car mode's pink and looks like a movie. When you start to transform it, you might think this gonna be groovy. Halfway through, we can already say, Car Walk is a meme that's here to stay. There's a touch of masterpiece in this lady robot, and the transformation's so finicky, you aren't even gonna think of the Korean transforming robot toy line Tobot. Deep cut. The nice thing about this figure is that she's not the Siege, Earthrise, Kingdom, whatever robot. That thing sucked to transform. A hover car is not a real accessory. I don't know why I set myself up to rhyme something that sounds like concession-y, which is where you might find a bag of popcorn while you're waiting for me to get this to bot form. Click this thing down is the bit I have trouble with, because I forgot to flip the backpack forthwith. So now we're collapsing the spine inwards, and truly, you might be wondering, hey, why is the crotch screw shimmering like jewelry? Because I forgot to rotate the hips and rotate the thighs. Now we gonna dip. RC's robot mode is tremendously animation accurate, but her handgun accessory is purely immaculate with that gray color scheme and no need for paint apps. It goes in her hand so she can do the blap blap. Articulation is choice because she doesn't have a gigantic backpack. She's even got a waist joint so that she can do some angular jumping jack. This RC blew my mind when I picked her up because she's the best one that you can find in any I thought I was going to rhyme with mainline. Whoops. That you can find in this hour of supper in another country where the time zone is in the PM, not in the morning tree. I highly recommend this 86 RC, and I'm really glad they didn't try to redo her again in Legacy. Next up, Studio Series Core Class RC. Fits in my carry-on. The challenge is explain this character's history in Mobile Suit Gundam throughout the review. I've added that one in because I'm a noted expert in the history of all Gundam. So I'm very good at remembering things like what Core Class RC here did in Mobile Suit Gundam, an anime cartoon series. So this is new, actually. This is also they have an homage to this classic Gundam character appearing in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. This toy also blew my mind because, much like Studio Series 86 RC, I didn't think much of this, but I wanted to try it, and it's now like my favorite Core Class this year. So you might remember this bike mode. This is when Amuro Ray was riding around to stop the Zeon. This was his classic red and white bicycle that is much like the colors of the RX-78 Gundam. The blue is on Amuro Ray's classic bomber jacket. That's why it's not visible here, obviously. And this thing works very well as a motorbike. There's a little removable kickstand down here, which you'll hopefully forget about for the next minute. And the transformation on this has an immediate throwback to one Legacy RC, who I inadvertently name-dropped 3 times in the previous segment. This little Core Class does the Legacy RC leg trick. On a Core Class, which is pretty freaking cool. Now, you might also remember the sequence in Mobile Suit Gundam Memory of an Ashen Galaxy. It was a classic OVA where Amuro Ray leapt off, and then RC, his partner motorcycle, did this sort of half transformation into what we call bike walk mode to go across the outer rim of the colony ship before it dropped on Europa. And the rest of this transformation is extending some legs. There is a cool little trick here where this panel of bike just sort of turns into some leg, and I think that the placement of mass is very neat. Back here, we got a twistable, actually removable front wheel for the sake of toy packaging and accuracy for when Char ripped the wheel off of the bicycle to say, "I got it now, Amuro Ray, I got your bike's front wheel," in that classic scene from Char's counterattack. We're going to rotate the waist now and get this thing up into place, flip these wheels back into the shins. And then, much like the stock animation sequence by Sunrise Animation Company for Mobile Suit Gundam, the head dynamically comes back, and then you might not catch this when you play with this toy yourself. Actually clicks into place. But you might want to unclick it to have her look down and do things, because, her kickstand is a little pistol. It's very hard to see in person in front of me, let alone on a camera, but there she is wielding her fin fanel photon array cannon that she had in Mobile Suit Gundam. And the articulation on this is up there with a lot of Bandai's best gunpla, as you might expect for a Mobile Suit Gundam classic character like this. So she's got ball socket shoulders with a cut to go up like this and a transformation hinge to go up even further. A ball socket head that actually has tiltable range in the socket, so she can cock her head from left and right and go like, "Hey, where's Ball gone?" Another classic Gundam character. And thanks to her waist joint, her ball socket hips, and her functioning 90-degree knees, despite the big hunk of wheel, she can, like any classic Transformers Core Class character, have her leg pop off. And she can also assume that signature attack of hers, the RC Rider Kick. If you undo the head joint slightly from transformation, you can have her look down. So this is just like when she took out the Neo Zeong with her Hisatsu attack in Gundam Endless Memory Stardust Nebula. It's another really classic OVA. So I highly recommend this figure, by the way, legit, no joke. This is really cool little figure. I highly recommend this over Freezer, who isn't bad but did not come here today. Didn't make the cut. All right, we truckin'. We're ahead of time still. We're maintaining. Next review subject: Cybertron Override. Cybertron Universe Override or Cybertron Override? What do you think? What do you think? There's a Cyber Planet key here. Once again, celebrating 20th anniversary-ish of the Unicron trilogy. We're all old. Is Cybertron Override. It's a classic toy. One of her arms is already trying to transform. Calm down. This is the Speedian Velocitronian leader. Rolls like a good old-fashioned car full of translucent red super slick wheels. There's a lot going on here. There is a force chip ignition function that you can do to flip some guns out. Force chip can stay in there. I watch Galaxy Force. I'm one of those. We're going to put this back, though, because the transformation on this is also a breeze. She's already mostly transformed. I'll do that again, actually, because you could barely see that. And we got a little bit extra time. I'm going to play for the audience. I'm going to be cocky. I'm going to be not cocky. I'm going to be cocksure. That's my word I like to use. So you can see this fully in view. Classic 06 transformation. She's mostly done. You do have to do some stuff still. And her backpack here plugs into her gun, which kind of locks it in there, even though you might want to pull it out later. There is still this little trick of like getting her hips to come forward and lock together, and getting her legs pointed forward. Her feet are very, very loose this many years later. I can't remember if that was a problem back then. This is, by the way, the Nitro Convoy version, I should say. This is not the Override version. I was one of those. I imported all my Galaxy Force. Oh yeah, go for it. So the articulation on this figure is what I'll talk about in a second. I should mention she also has hilarious proportions to accommodate all of the flip changing. So she does not look like she does in the cartoon, because back then they had the gimmick in place. They could not get the plastic to shrink, so she has just a very large set of shoulders. Still fully articulated arms with a 90-degree bend of the elbow. There's no waist joint because her waist is made of pieces that came together, but a ball socket set of hips lets her do lots of running poses with her knees and thigh swivels. Her feet don't really do anything and in fact are very floppy now, so she tends to inadvertently be in a dash position. But if you undo the backpack and you get this little hunk out of there and put the backpack back up, and I think there is a different peg to peg the backpack in there, I forgot about that. You can have her hold this plank, and you might think, what's she gonna do with a plank? But then you take this thing here, the gold one, the special one, you say force chip ignition, which is landing with less and less people now, because I don't think anyone actually watches Galaxy Force. Thank you. You can pop out these gun barrels, and you can have Override, go blap, blap, blap. I forgot what the Hisatsu name was for this attack. But Cybertron Override is not a shining example of the best of Galaxy Force Cybertron, but she really is a unique, very unique piece as far as being a deluxe scaled multi-mechanism flip changer. And I forgot to do a challenge for that one. I'll just bump this to the end. I got excited about Override. We're going on the fly with the rules here. We're still going to get all of our challenges in, especially on this next one, which is Studio Series RC from the Bumblebee movie. Again, these alt modes fit into my carry-on perfectly. We got to pop the challenge out for this one before I forget. So the challenge on this one is it's a classic. Does anyone have any tape? Do this review without using your thumbs. It's from Toronto. This one was a good time. So I can do this, but we have tape. We're halfway through, so I will need some help getting this tape off afterwards. I'm going to rip a piece here. I'm going to do this a little bit quickly because I don't want us to run out of time because of tape reasons. All right, now I am trained. Don't do this at home without supervision. Because when your thumbs are stuck together and you can't get them apart again, boy does life get difficult when you're used to having access to your thumbs. So Studio Series RC from the Bumblebee movie turns into an original alt mode designed for, I'm trying to get these guns oriented here. Okay, there we go. An original alt mode designed for this toy line specifically. Her guns are her exhaust ports, so yes, you can see hands if you're looking for them. It's a Cybertronian alt mode. It's all good. It rolls really darn well. I love the shape of this thing, this motorcycle car. And the transformation is actually pretty intricate, which is not great in this situation. But there is a surprising amount of flow and really cool mechanisms to this once I can get parts of it unlocked. The problem is I'm used to doing this with a certain amount of tactile sensory assistance, and without that, I suspect I might just tear pieces off. Okay, so this bit folds up here, obviously. Let me flip this around. There's actually a fairly intricate way to get the legs in place. But we don't need to be intricate when we can be courageous. This is actually a pretty intricate way that this backpack comes together as well. Okay, yeah, so we get this down here. Stay on there. This has to go into the collar and stick. This has to go like that, and then we got to rotate these pods around so they look G1-ish. They're on little ball socket joints. I didn't get that to lock together quite. The locking on this, of course, is not perfect, and we got to get this tape back up here. Hang on, we're gonna tape you to you. But yeah, we are getting the arms down into place. We're getting the head into place. We got something going on here. Now the legs, you can just leave them like this if you want, but I like to show off how it was actually really easy to get mistransformations going on in this figure because people just weren't not quite sure how she worked. And you just have to easily get this. Oh no, I have to pull this on the rivet. Right. Okay. So you gotta wiggle this thing out on the rivet. Usually you would use, your thumb strength to help you do that. And then get this thing back up. You're trying to align a couple of little prongs over here together in a again, a very precise, beautiful piece of engineering that's a lot harder to do using only your upper finger strength. Oh boy. Anyway, once you get that done, which I totally have, but you can barely see it in the camera shot, so you just believe me. This part of her leg unclicks like this. Oh, my tape came off. The short pieces of tape are ruining me. But yeah, this is how her leg is supposed to look, with this bit sticking off the back like this. With this thing hang on, I'm gonna take the hit on the time because I didn't do the tape right, and I have to do right by Aaron's belief that this has to be done properly and to the rules. There we go. Anyway, as I was saying, with those legs, if you don't do the legs correctly, not to waste time, I'll keep talking here. The legs have to be done in a fashion such that you have this sort of shape going on. Because if you just try to flip the foot out, oh yeah, I have to pull this on the rivet too. I forgot I have to do that twice. Oh! Okay. If you sacrifice your finger flesh a little bit to just jam it into the mechanism, the meat of your finger will naturally expand again when you crush it. And that will give you the ample amount of needed force to get the piece to come back out. Oh, this one just doesn't want to go. It's like she knows. She's like, haha, you got no thumbs. Oh, there we go. Yeah, things are happening. Nope, things are not happening. I got that part to come out. The last one just went all of a sudden. Maybe I have to, it's kind of like the Ark of the Covenant. You have to get just the right amount of there we go. Anyway, yeah, if you do things like this, she will actually be able to stand with a proper stance. The articulation on this figure is pretty self-evident. I don't have to go through it. She's got modern articulation to a high standard. Her robot mode came first, so a lot of that articulation is fairly uninhibited. I'm just going to show you that she can hold her gun still. There you go. And these little pod things on ball socket joints mean that she has like a rocket jump, back booster kind of thing going on. You can untransform her feet if you want. I'm not going to, but that means that she can have skating mode kind of things. This is a really cool toy with a really cool alt mode. And in general, these Bumblebee movie deluxes, I think turned out pretty stellar. So I'm a little biased, but I'm a fan of this. I'm just going to check my time. Yeah, we're all good. All right, we're on schedule. So I am going to need a moment to free myself. All right, there's a bit on here. I'm just going to... Movies, they always tell you, it's going to hurt. Actually kind of hurt. The next subject is... Oh, it's time. I need to stack... Okay, we're going to have to double stack a challenge on the next one. The Clap Challenge. I will be reviewing the core class Decepticon Command from Legacy Kingdom, etc. We've got a noble volunteer who I need to come up to the table. Just up here. I don't have to come around. So I'm going to be reviewing Megatron, Starscream, and Soundwave core class. And what I need you to do is, once I get going on this, whenever you want, clap, and every time you clap, I have to change subject of which one of these three I'm reviewing while maintaining cogent trains of thought on all three. So we're going to start, we're going to put them in this order: Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, and here I go. Whenever you want, you're free to clap. Megatron has got a tank mode. I'm really a fan of Megatron moving to a tank mode like this. I think it's just sensible. It makes for blockier toys, but this classic F-15 mode is precisely what you need out of a Starscream. Like, it's clean, it's sleek, it's kind of big, and a little spoiler, how does this even work? Well, this one is pretty obvious. This classic boombox mode, he's a block, he turns into Soundwave. We can just start transforming him, but before I do that, the turret on this can actually rotate left and right despite being a transforming toy. How's that going to work? Well, if we get the transformation going, on Starscream, I can start to show you the big spoiler. But number one, these null rays suck. They pop out the moment you twist them. I hate these things. I'm fine that Skywarp didn't have them, because I think these are very bad. Now, this is a bit of a spoiler. I've tried to hide this from people who don't have this toy, because how does this work? Just like G1 Soundwave. You open the legs up like this. You even rotate the thighs the same way. You flip feet out. You get arms out. You got to flip fists out, actually, on this little guy. So that's a thing. There is a door on the back that isn't there. I was thinking of a different toy to flip the head out. But Soundwave here, he's almost ready, but he's going to take a break, because Megatron, you've got to get this little actually Walter P-38 shaped accessory out of the gun barrel of the tank. And this little guy is a little bit jiggly, a little finicky. He's a Kingdom era ball socket oriented core class, but you still have a cool leg extension mechanism. You got a waist swivel to get things around to reveal all of this. And then this backpack is a little bit of finicky work. You have to pay attention to what you're doing. As you get the first reveal on Starscream's transformation unveiled. The first stage of transformation is to open half of his torso on the underside of the jet mode. And then in one of my favorite moves ever, you just get a bunch of this down like this, rotate the wings 180, and flip a lot of it back up. It's such a cool transformation. I cannot believe that they figured out how to make the F-15 Seeker interesting yet again in the realm of Transformers. Soundwave has got these accessories that are pretty straightforward, and they're interesting, but you've seen them all. They store on his alt mode in those spots in his legs. I like to just leave them there. But there is like one hole up here for his shoulder cannon, and then he has an opening cassette door that actually has like a little Laserbeak cassette inside with paint apps and everything. Now, the way that you transform this is that you pick up Megatron and continue folding his arms outwards. You got to uncouple this cannon from one of the arms, flip these shoulders around, and then this is a little bit bunched up here, but there's just enough hinging range to get this backpack up and over, and you can start to get the arms into place. Before you do that, though, you gotta finish Starscream. We only did half of this cool transformation, so let's continue by rotating the little head on its double-hinged stick that it lives on, getting this nose cone back. There's a little divot for it to fold back on this side of the backpack specifically, and then we close up this chest with the arms and wings all attached. Is that not one of the coolest transformations you've ever seen on a classic 80s Seeker? You could have left the null rays attached this whole time, hypothetically, but they would not stay attached because the pegs they are on do not work very well. The pegs on Soundwave work pretty great, because this guy, they're not falling off at all. Anyway, Laserbeak, I was going to make a joke about how the way you transform this is you don't, because how are they going to fit that into core class? You might be able to fit the world's smallest Laserbeak or Ravage in here. I haven't tried it, but Soundwave has got the full suite of core class articulation, sans waist joint, but he's got a swiveling head, ball socket shoulders, and elbows, which form a bicep swivel ball socket, hips with no skirt bits moving forward on the front or back, so he's limited as far as his seating arrangements, but he can do the splits like Megatron can as you rotate his head around to get him into his full and complete robot mode. There's one other thing. You swivel this fusion cannon, and then only on this arm you have a wrist swivel attached to the forearm stuff to reveal that arm to make him a symmetrical robot. This Megatron design is one of my favorites, and I love that it is on some of those Magic the Gathering artworks they did recently for Secret Lair. This is like one of the best G1 Megatron designs I've seen in ages, and his articulation is waist jointed and bar none. This is a good figure. He's out again in green. Like, pick him up, but first make sure you get a hold of one copy of this, because the transformation on this is sublime, and if you get the Skywarp version, you can skip these silly null rays that fall off all the time. There's no waist joint on this dude, but otherwise he is also fully suited and kitted out in core class articulation. You can have him point his null rays and say, "Hey Megatron, I'm gonna take leadership over from you." And Megatron can say, "Well, I've got this little Walter P38 that you can actually put into Soundwave's hand, so it looks like he is wielding Megatron in a smaller gun mode." The play pattern between these three, and I assume the little Shockwave I haven't found yet, is pretty bar none for some desktop G1 Decepticon command. And that about does the review for Soundwave, so we'll just naturally move on to Megatron with a clap, and say that this also can peg into Megatron's back to give him that little shoulder cannon thing he always has. Fully featured Megatron. I think this toy is really good and underrated. I think this toy is actually slightly overrated sometimes as far as the robot mode, but the transformation, bar none, worth your time. That is the core class Decepticon trio. Thank you so much for your clapping help. Oh, now I have to keep jumping subject. Now, to make up for skipping one of those challenges, we are going to do a double challenge on this next one, which I hadn't planned, but you gotta roll with things as they happen. Our next subject is Legacy Minerva. Because, as I said before, the theme of this thing is a mixture of carry-on and woman robot, and these alt modes fit in my carry-on super well. And I couldn't find my Alita. She was in a bag somewhere. Minerva was on my desk. She came along. I think she was hard for y'all in America to find, so this is also just a flex. I was thinking of bringing Galaxy Shuttle, but he's too big. Anyway, Minerva here. The challenges are going to be... Oh, okay, this is complicated, but it'll make sense. Review Legacy Tarn in the context of handling this toy, only speaking about Legacy Tarn. Because I wanted to bring him. And also, audience input, do the review with a predetermined hate or love for a specific part of the toy, that being Legacy Tarn. So what do I specifically love or hate about Legacy Tarn?
Hate his arms.
You hate his arms. All right, so I hate Legacy Tarn's arms. We're going to talk only about Legacy Tarn as I go through talking about, I don't know, this thing. This alt mode, is not a tank. Legacy Tarn, however, has this impressive wedge-like tank alt mode. Oh, it's so cool. And it has I don't think that, Legacy Tarn has implied wheels, not real. He doesn't need them. He's a tank. Like cars you want to roll around, but a tank you don't need to. And Legacy Tarn has an interesting setup where he's got these gun accessories that can go onto his upper turret position, and it's got its own ratcheting rotator. It's not relying on a 5mm peg to rotate like a lesser toy might. And Legacy Tarn has an asymmetrical gun, which some other toys have tried to do, although other toys did it because of some funny meme about how they only came with one gun, so the other one is clear, whereas Legacy Tarn is doing it because that's the line art! Anyway, Legacy Tarn's transformation is, I've really dug it. I didn't actually end up digging it as much as another Voyager, but it is, once you do it once or twice, it makes sense. It's got a sort of simplicity to it once you get the order of operations correct. There are other toys where you can, just start with the legs and go. Legacy Tarn, you kind of want to remove those guns first and get the legs going, but you need to pause sort of in the midst of the legs in order to make room for them as you go through the shoulder transformation, which is kind of complex just because you're getting a bunch of shoulder mush out of the way and flipped around so that the forearms can assume their full shape. By the way, Legacy Tarn has got these sick working knuckles, which you won't find on a deluxe. You'll just find like peg fists. But Legacy Tarn's shoulders, they do a trick to hit the line art where they flip around and unlock from the forearms, and a forearm chunk comes around on here, and then the rest of the shoulders fold up into here. Legacy Tarn doesn't really have much of a backpack, whereas some other toys lately tend to have a little bit of a backpack, albeit compact ones. Legacy Tarn, he doesn't even have to worry about that. The one thing about Legacy Tarn, though, is that he doesn't really have like variability to the robot mode other than where you attach his accessories. And I kind of wish that there was a little bit of room to have multiple shoulder configurations, because that's like one of the most fun things about some of the more modern Legacy installments when they have lots of backpack mush is room to reposition stuff. Legacy Tarn, he doesn't really need it though, but he could use it because, God, those arms! Legacy Tarn's arms is ridiculous. He's got these. He has like elbow joints, which is kind of disgusting because it reminds me of humans. And like I don't really see why we need to have like elbow joints on like, because Tarn, like he has his knuckle joints, which are great, but those are on his hands, and it's like they tried to do the knuckle joints again in the middle of his arms to make his arm bend, and it's like it's disgusting, honestly. But that's a small thing, small price to pay. No toy is going to be perfect, but when toys, as long as they hit their marks and they make you feel good, I guess that's what's important. But if some third party could please make some new arms for Legacy Tarn that don't have elbows, so I can just keep his arms nice and lock, stock, straight, because it's annoying. I keep trying to pose him and then the arm bends, and I'm like, don't look so natural. Only like this. Also, attaching his forearm cannon, his double fusion cannon, can be a bit finicky because there's two holes. A lot of positions never seem to quite work right, but eventually you'll find something that will stay in place. And then an elbow will bend, and you'll just want to go and vomit. Anyway, that's Legacy Tarn. Still highly recommended. This is how'd this get? I don't know what this is, but you can find that at Walgreens apparently. The next subject that we've got here is tidal wave. Obviously, it's the modern tidal wave. It's the Titan Master tidal wave. It's some funny bit he's gonna do. What are we? No, it's gonna be tidal wave. OG green video game colors tidal wave. Good Transformers. And the challenge is, I am doing the next review for people who have never heard of the Transformers. So the Transformers was a media franchise that began in 1984, which brought together Diaclone and Microman for a Western audience for not the first, but the first notable time. Transformers' hallmark is that it has what's called an alt mode, which stands for alternate mode, which sometimes has a hyphen in between. And in the case of Tidal Wave here, there's actually 3 of them. Now you might think, oh, is that one of those triplet changers I've heard about? No. Well, maybe kind of, but not because of the 3 alt modes. These are boats. These things, I think some of you have seen boats. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but these do not float in water. There are some weirdos on YouTube who have tested stuff like that before, which I would not recommend following them. They're possibly homicidal maniacs. But there was a lot of gimmickry built into these little boats. This boat, for instance, as an aircraft carrier, has a little elevator that pops up and deploys a little friend that we call Ramjet. Now, Ramjet is not what he turns into, but it is a jet. Transformers sometimes have weird names. Like this guy is a boat, tidal wave, Ramjet, a jet. But also, this is what's called a mini-con, which is that it's a small robot, and they have conned you into buying a tiny, tiny toy. Who came with this as a series of accessories. That's a joke. But minicons can plug into things, and in 2003, you could plug a minicon into a port that sometimes would do a special thing where these little cannons that can all flip up will start to undulate when you pump the minicon. And this is a thing a lot of Transformers fans are into, is pumping the toy. If you ever meet a Transformers fan and you say, hey, what have you been pumping lately? One of them will probably say something like, I was pumping tidal waves and nipples. And you'll think, what are you talking about? It'll make sense in a second. There is, of course, like more minicons out there, and they might have a place to sit if you were to pop open some doors on this part of Tidal Wave and flip down some double-hinged chairs that, you know what, I know you're all new to this, but there are some established Transformers fans who still forget that this thing actually does this. Because it's very easy to forget amidst all the other functions of this toy. Now, I know we were talking about triple changers. That's when an alt mode is perhaps what could be called alt mode 1, and maybe there's an alt mode 2. In the case of Tidal Wave, there is an alt mode 2, but it also is on the back of what's called combination, or as we like to say in the fandom, gatai, or as they like to say on Alt Toys Transformers, which is a Usenet website, combinding. If you talk to any of them in person, they might also say things like gestalt, which is it's all weird, funny fandom terms. It has nothing to do with the phrase gestalt, which was invented by a famous psychiatrist. But you can plug all of these bits together and flip some wings out to form something called the Dark Fleet. And you might think, why is it called the Dark Fleet when there's only one? I don't know. Do you think I know everything? I'm trying to teach you what the Transformers even are. Anyway, this thing is just a large, swooshable shape. It's very fun. And oddly, it's the only time that this kind of play pattern for a tidal wave has existed in the last 20 years. Now, the Transformers. You're like, all right, so it's vehicles that turn into vehicles. I've seen that before. I'm a Mask fan, and you wouldn't be wrong. But Transformers uniquely introduced something that's called a robot mode. Now, robots, as we know them, are cars that drive themselves very safely. This is an older piece of technology where you do a few little flips and turns. It's kind of like a tactile puzzle of sorts. In the case of this one, with some very satisfying clicky joints. But as you start to flip bits more and more, you start to notice something, which is, hey, wait a second, that's reminding me of a certain kind of shape. It's reminding me of the human body. I have one of those. You'd be correct. As you undulate the pieces and ratchet and flick them around and rotate them in big, dynamic, cinematic ways, as featured in Transformers Armada for the PS2, which is this character's shining moment, you even can flip out a couple fingers here. This might remind you of the thing that you're all into, which is Mobile Suit Gundam, which often have articulated fingers and whatnot on their perfect grade kits. If you pop this piece out, it's a head, because this has turned into what's called a robot. Now, not only can this turn into a robot, the little ramjet accessory can also turn into a robot with another series of flips and turns, real simple. And you've got a mini-con partner. Now, this is not actually a common thing. This was a gimmick for one line, which was very ambitious and kind of disappeared afterwards. But Tidal Wave here is a robot. Now, he's actually articulated to some degree. He can move arms around. He can T-pose, so he can assert his dominance. And his waist even swivels, which was a huge deal 20 years ago. His head does not, because it's the wrong shape. It's a square. Squares don't turn. Only circles turn. That's just a rule of geometry. His legs can kick forward though, and they can kick outwards. He can do the splits. He doesn't have forward and backwards knees, but he can assume a sort of Mario stomp, so that he can, again, like with the T-pose, really assert the dominance. This is just Tidal Wave saying, like, I am the king of the road or the ocean. But now you might have been wondering, hey, Transformers expert, why were you talking about nipples earlier? Well, let me tell you, if you mount the little guy onto the chest, you can pump the little guy to undulate the nipples. And that is this is Transformers.gif right here. This is what the Transformers are. This is the franchise, and I welcome you all to it. I hope you have a good time and find some good toys to pump yourselves. Before we move on to our final piece, as we have just under 5 minutes remaining, our final selection, Legacy Velocitron 5000 Override. We're doing the double override thing. And the challenge, audience input, add an extra mode that must be treated as real and official.
Toilet.
We actually had the toilet one earlier in the show, and I have to respect it. I was hoping you were still here. So yes, I have to involve a toilet mode in this. Before I do, I will very briefly, just because I brought it with me. Did you know this new toy has a slot on the back that can fit a Cyber Planet key? It's true. It doesn't, well, it stays in there through pure friction, but it doesn't do anything. Anyway, Override here. This car mode is a throwback to one you might have seen before. She's in the wrong mode, ignore that. And it's a bit sleeker in the back, still rolls really well. Feels like thick 2006 plastic, which is like one of the best parts of this thing. And you can still fold, no, you can't fold the guns forward, ignore that. You can transform this, however. This is not flip change. And as I transform this, we're going to take a little detour because a lot of people don't know Override has a famous third mode. So you get things going here, and then before you go into full bipedal form, if you rotate this bit up and around like this, right? and you get these things as sort of what we could call armrests. You've got one of the first versions of an official Transformers toilet mode, and you might think, like, how does this work? Well, if we just bust out a little helpful friend here, we can show you that in Cybertron, like, toilets have armrests. They're comfortable. They've got room for backpacks, and it's really cool that they finally started, because a lot of Transformers have this mode canonically, but the toys rarely ever accommodate them. So finally, we have a full, functioning Transformers toilet mode, which I think really like speaks to the quality of engineering that we have going on nowadays. But to continue on, I've only got 2.5 minutes here. The transformation on this is dead solid. Such good clicking. And when you fold the feet down, this little bit behind like has its own tabs to lock over the gap. This is a very good toy. It's very sad that this was confined to a retailer exclusive capsule that also appears to be completely dead now at Walmart. But this also solves the original issue of Override's massive shoulders with a bit of modern engineering that I like to call sliding along a rod. And this is a little bit of a tricky thing because you got to get some tabs aligned with slots as you're sliding a thing in. But once you get it in there, look at that. She's got like a normal torso with normal shoulder length, and this figure is awesome. It's a Voyager that looks deluxe size. Yes, that's a whole other conversation we did at a panel yesterday that was very fun. And but this feels solid, good, thick plastic. Articulation is up there. There's even a little bit, just a touch of a waist joint. And then the backpack can pop off. You can put that into her hand. She's got a wrist swivel now that she never had before. And then you can manually flip out these little gunlets. And then, unlike the other Override who had little soft plastic things, these solid things can actually ratchet click up in 2 different positions to make the gun really look gun-like, because guns always have 2 fins on top. And yeah, I hope you can get a hold of this if you think this looks cool, because I think she's still floating around. She was like shipping in a case on her own. Override is a fantastic piece and a great way to end the Manic Marathon, because we have finished with 1 minute to spare. So we pulled it off. Little bit of BSing here and there, but that's how we do things with the Manic Marathon, with this giant mess of cards I have sitting around here. While I clean up, I will briefly say that there were 2 challenges we didn't get to, which I'll save for another time, which is each sentence of this review must begin with the next letter of the alphabet. And then one I was kind of hoping we'd hit, which was crank the influencer dial up to 11 for this review, which would have been loud, admittedly. But yeah, thank you all for coming by. Thanks to everyone who donated to Extra Life. If you haven't, that's okay. You still can. If you follow one of my socials, I will tweet out a link or post a link about it as I go. Aaron has a team, which is Andy Rue's gaming gang that I am a part of. We are raising kids for, in Aaron's case, Riley's Children's Hospital. In my case, the Sick Kids of Ontario, Toronto cause, Ontario cause. Next up, what's the next panel? Bob Forward is the next panel, so do not stand up. I will know if one of you stand up. Oh, he stood up. Anyway, thank you all. Stay tuned for the next panel, and have a good rest of the show. Come by Sunday for the YouTuber panel.